So welcome back. I'm here with Sakuntala Ramanee, Lisa Bowerman and Rona Munro.
Hello, Helen.
Hello, ladies.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
I was going to say, we've spoken a lot about the script. So Rona, how did you kind of come up with the concept for Survival? And how much were you told to include from the Doctor Who team?
It's really interesting, actually, because in terms of comparing it to doing that series and doing the more recent series that I did, the last Peter Capaldi one, I never remember the numbers, but again, everyone out there will know the one I mean. Basically, we were kind of left to our own devices an awful lot more back then on Survival. So it felt in some ways, a lot more authored, because, it was kind of like I was noodling away with things that interested me or obsessed me. And I think that idea that human beings are some superior kind of animal is one that I've always pushed against. And also the idea that, you can live in a violent way and it has no consequences remains very timely. It felt, it's probably always is at every point in human history. And there's all that. And then there's all the kind of legend folklore sensibility that's a big thing for me. So that's kind of really the package that went into Survival. Whereas when I came back to it, there was an awful lot more of ongoing plot elements you had to put in and stuff, which is not to say that one experience was better than the other. They were just very different in that way. But that on Survival, it kind of felt like I was just left to come up with something, and then it was about making it work, if you know what I mean.
Well, can I ask a question? When you approached Andrew Cartmel at that gig, did you already have an idea brewing for what you wanted?
No. And I think what happened after that was we must have had a series of conversations, and I got introduced to John Nathan Turner, who I didn't know to be scared of, and therefore was not scared of. Because I had no idea of producers and power or how things operated. And also he was absolutely charming, absolutely wonderfully charming. I think, so my memory of it, and again, it was a slightly into kind of mainstream telly, in as much as it was also gentle and good humoured and, well, let's just, and I came out of it with no idea how to pitch and no idea how to sell an idea, and just would then go along and vaguely waffle in other jobs and wonder why I didn't get them. But it was, it felt like it was about, well, you're enthusiastic, we're enthusiastic, we all like the same sort of ideas, let's do that. So it was kind of nice, actually, in that sense.
Am I allowed to ask you something, Rim?
Yeah.
Why that assortment of friends around Ace, and why Perivale?
Perivale, that was already in Ace's backstory, so I was stuck with it.
Oh, okay.
And actually, I had no idea what Perivale was actually like. And I think you kind of look at the script, and there's sort of certain references to kind of a bleak urban wasteland, because I thought I was writing for Inner London. So I didn't really know. And then I think I did a kind of pass when someone said it's a bit more like this, and I was like, oh shit. And do you in that group of actors, do you mean in terms of diversity or
just in terms of, yes, what made you think of that group of friends?
I think I was working a lot for a theatre company called Red Ladder.
I know, I've worked for them.
Yeah. So I really wanted to have a group of people that represented the young people we were taking shows to, so that's, around and about Leeds and in those kind of city communities. And I just wanted to have a group of friends that reflect, and you had to battle a bit for the BBC at that point to kind of get anything that we would now call representation. It was just, but we managed, we did what we could. So
And what's so great, if you look when the new series came back, which of course is now over 10 years ago, which is bonkers, the influence that had on the very first few episodes with Rose and things like that, I think it's undeniable in terms of the environment that Survival was in. how they mirrored
Oh,
that.
well, I wouldn't claim that much credit, but thank you. That's a very nice thing to say.
I genuinely think that, because obviously it's made by somebody who knew the series very well.
Yes, yeah, and loved it. Yeah,
absolutely.
No, I think I agree with you, Lisa, because when you make those choices, you pave the way. You start to pave the way for something different and almost allow new possibilities. If those things don't happen along the way, change is even slower than it is.
Yeah, exactly.
And what's really interesting for me, and I've never managed to say this to Rona, was that group of friends, and Shreela within it, was so refreshing, because at the time, as a then young British female actor, British Asian female actor, I used to, all I used to see, and often all I was asked to play, were kind of functional roles, is the best way I can put it. So they were roles that were kind of slightly on the outside of society or the community. You might be a doctor, or you might be a lawyer, or you might be somebody who sits in the corner shop, but there was no more life to your part.
Yeah, you never had any agency. You're like set dressed.
Nothing. Yeah. And it was like that afterwards too. But this kind of really, it felt very different, because it felt like it was part of me, and like I was part of something.
It wasn't made an issue out of. It felt absolutely natural that you just
Yes, that's
absolutely
yeah.
Kind of, oh look,
Yes.
oh look. It was.
That's right. You're not a symbol. You're just part of a group of friends, as one is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and as young people were at that time, it's not.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But that wasn't getting reflected. I think it did come out of the theatre work I was doing in the community. I think I would have been probably, that was an education for me. To understand, exactly what life was like for young people in Britain, or a bit more about it than I probably would have done living in rural Aberdeen. And then but then you think, well, that's your audience. You've got to reflect your audience, haven't you? So, yeah.
Well, that was why I asked about Perivale, because I had a couple of years before that, 1 year before that, lived in Greenford, which is next door to Perivale,
Right, yeah.
and so know the area very well. And actually there were pockets of people, but so that was why it was so great to to see this happening right there in this way.
So we're talking about sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say the probably motorbike gangs, so that was
yeah.
I kind of needed there to be motorbike gangs.
Don't watch Looking Bikes. Well turned out.
Because we're talking about representation, and the theme for this week is sort of female empowerment within. Did you feel that Survival gave you opportunities to write and play stronger women than other roles?
I suppose, again, the sensibility because I was coming from a theatre sensibility, and theatre at that time was probably quite a long way ahead of telly in terms of what it was trying to do around those kind of issues. And I'm consciously feminist and was consciously feminist, and all of those kind of things. So yeah, there was a sense of, I felt that all my career. I can never say these things without thinking I sound like a total wanker, but I've always felt that I've got a responsibility to write strong female roles for as long as I'm writing, because even if I'm wildly successful and prolific and everything I do goes on, and they all have strong parts in it for women, it's still going to be like a grain of sand on the mountain of strong parts for men, because we've just got so much catching up to do. So I did feel that. And I also wanted to get, a kind of, a lesbian representation in there, but that was definitely a step too far for the BBC. So we smuggled it in, but Lisa knew, so she played it. You subliminally knew.
I wish somebody had told me at the time. I was too busy trying to stay on the horse, you know.
So many people spotted that. But and it's so interesting when I think about that, because it wasn't even a question I asked anybody. I didn't say, if I show a kind of, you know, Ace being sexually attracted to a cheetah woman, is it going to be a thing? I was just 100% convinced it would be a thing. And maybe I was wrong, but I don't think I was. So there was that sense of kind of like smuggling it in, which of course you wouldn't have to do now. Look what's happened in Doctor Who since then.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. I certainly picked up more a sense, and because it was never discussed, because we were all so busy looking at technical things and never the other. It's like, say the lines and don't bump into the furniture, you know. What came across is that very strong sense of kinship, and I think regardless of people's interpretation and the fact that it was never discussed, because the writing was so strong, that central element of the relationship between Karra and Ace, and actually all her female friends, I think, in that are very interesting, because they've got Kate, who plays the old mate from school, you know, shaking a bucket. We've got Shreela. We've got it was really interesting because she responded to everybody completely differently, and that kind of how could you describe it, that relationship between Ace and she was attracted to the wild side, not just the female side, and I think that had so many layers in it that actually, regardless of whether we knew about it, it reads anyway, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that was the hope. Yeah, absolutely.
I hope so.
Well, thank you very much. Sadly, we've run out of time.
Oh, I'm just going to say goodbye, because I did bring something along just for old time's sake that I thought you might appreciate, that was it being in my...
oh, wow.
It's my death head from Karra's... yeah, there we go.
Wow.
Nice. Anyway, goodbye from him and goodbye from me. Thank you, Helen.
It's been wonderful to talk to you. I could talk to you for much, much longer. Thank you very much, Sakuntala, Lisa and Rona.